Hey everyone, happy Saturday. I wanted to hop on with you guys. Dr. Jeremy Schmoe is going to join us today, and many of you know that Jeremy has been my amazing doctor the past year and a half, and he has helped me really get back a quality of life after my brain injury. All right, here he is. There we go. All right, he should be here in just a second. There he is.
Hello.
Hi.
All right.
All right. So I was saying, I wanted to bring you on today and just share with everyone, over and over and over in the group, we hear people saying, like, I'm always dizzy. Is this normal? Why is this happening? Why am I dizzy? What's causing it? And it's probably like the number one complaint that I hear. So I really wanted to bring you in today and really just talk through the whole dizzy imbalance thing and, different things that can be causing it. And, what are things that functional neurology can do and how it works and how you got me back to my quality of life.
All right. 1 second. So your video, for me, it's pretty choppy right now.
Okay. Might be one of our internets, probably my internet.
Let me see here. Okay, I think that's better. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I guess, we'll try and break down dizziness, and, it's one of the most common complaints that people come into our office with, especially after a traumatic brain injury, whiplash, concussion, and really what we're trying to figure out is, well, what's the mechanism involved? So it could be an issue with your cervical spine. It could be an issue with your peripheral vestibular system. But commonly what's going on, it's an issue with the central vestibular system and the connections between the neck and the cerebellum and the eye movements and how your brain perceives your body to be in space. So I guess we'll kind of break that down a little bit more and try and make that make sense. So say if you're walking across the ice and you slip and fall and hit your head backwards into the ice, I mean, you could obviously have trauma to your neck. But what happens is when you injure your brain, you get rotation and torsion that happens into the brainstem, all right, and also into midline areas of the cerebellum and different nuclei that control eye movements and balance. Those areas get torsions. They get affected with trauma. So what does that mean? The areas in the brainstem that control your eyes to try and keep your eyes steady, those areas could be affected. So you could have issues with your eye tracking, whether that be like the ability to keep your eyes steady or follow targets smoothly or move your eyes quickly or tolerate motion. Those issues could be affected. You could also have an issue with your neck after that injury. All right. So that's always what we're trying to figure out in our office is, what is the complex integration of these systems? And most importantly, well, what can we do to get people feeling better? For me, it's not just good enough to go, all right, well, you have a brain injury or we already know that you have that going on.
Right.
Like I want to try and fix people. So, commonly people will come to see us, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years after their injuries. I usually don't see them right away. And they've already, for the most part, have done vision therapy, vestibular rehabilitation, chiropractic care, acupuncture, myofascial work, craniosacral. And where we come in is we're trying to figure out this complex circuitry because something's usually being missed. And most commonly, it's the autonomic system that's being missed. So
I want to just clarify one thing. So you said a lot of people don't come to you till 6 months, a year, 2 years out, but that's because they're not finding you. They don't know about you. It's not because you can't help them. Like if they can find you right away, you can help them sooner. So I just kind of want to clarify that for people.
Yeah, the reason why I don't see people until then is because they just don't find us or they're not referred to us or That's they're going through a clinic that's working with different types of therapies. That's an integrated model. So, that's the most common reason is people just aren't referred to us right away. Mm-hmm. All right. Which, obviously you need to go through the medical. I think people need to go through the medical system, obviously have appropriate imaging, do MRI, do CT, make sure there isn't significant trauma, subdural hematoma, isn't anything extremely, obviously serious, life-threatening types of situations, rule all that out first. All right. Obviously, that's a really good idea to do that.
So Carrie just asked, is there any imaging to ask for to check neck and brainstem related to understanding why I'm still dizzy? And I know that you're going to kind of get to that. So I just wanted to read that question while it was on my screen.
Yeah, we'll totally get to that. So I'll just kind of break down, like, what would I assess with somebody that came in to see me with dizziness, just right from the very beginning, working them up all the way through. So I'll just talk about a case of a girl that I had this last week. She had a car accident. It was about 1.5 years ago. So she was at a stop sign and she had her head turned to the left. She was talking to her mom. Car came up over a hill going 50 miles per hour, hit them in the back, and basically a severe whiplash injury where afterwards she had no idea what was going on. She didn't know the make or model of her car. She was extremely dizzy. She had a hard time just standing up and walking. Went to the emergency room. They ruled out, brain bleed, hematoma. They did CT scan. They ruled everything out. Everything was fine. She was checked out by ER, checked out by the neurological department. Everything is fine. Went through vision therapy, chiropractic, matrix repatterning technique, which is a really cool technique. What else did she do? I think they tried like everything by the time they'd come to see me, and she was having severe motion intolerance. So just doing like this right here would really, really mess with her. Like going to a store would blow her up. So she would start getting twitching in her face, and muscles would start jerking, and she'd get really nauseous, and she was vomiting pretty much every single day, extremely dizzy. And I'll just go through kind of what I was seeing with her exam and what we did and types of improvements that we saw in 5 days. So the first thing that we did is we checked her resting heart rate, and we did that on her seated position and then standing. And what you would see is her resting heart rate was, I think it was at like 105 or maybe 105 or 110 when she was just sitting there. All right, which is way too high for her age at 24. You're looking at probably resting 65, 70, something like that. And then she would stand up and her heart rate would elevate, and then her blood pressure would drop, and it was enough to classify it as positional orthostatic tachycardia, or POTS, where basically you stand up and your heart rate jumps over 30 beats per minute. And what's going on is the circuitry in the brain that got injured just isn't integrating your autonomics to allow you to get appropriate blood flow up to your head. So then your heart has to work harder, all right, to get, perfusion up to your brain. So with those types of things, you can have lightheadedness, you can feel dizzy, all right? If your brain's not getting oxygen, if it's not getting perfusion, if it's not getting the blood flow that it needs, how is the circuitry going to work appropriately? Mm-hmm. All right. So that was one of the main things that we saw with her, and we addressed that with some therapies that I'll talk about. The next thing that we did is just a very in-depth cranial nerve exam. So you want to look at all the cranial nerves, just like you have a median nerve that goes and innervates the skin here. You have cranial nerves that come out of your brainstem that innervate your head. They go to muscles that make you smile and raise your eyes and move your eyes up, down, left, right, to put your tongue out and have it go straight, to be able to swallow. And she actually had a really hard time swallowing. So basically she'd be, her breathing would be fine, and then out of nowhere, she would just almost like lose the ability to have appropriate contractions of the muscles of her throat. All right. And then when you look in and take a look at her palate and look at the way that her palate raises up, it was not moving appropriately. So when I see things like that, or if I see subtle like weakness in the tongue, I go, well, that's not normal, right? It's not a full, allopathic medical neurological lesion where you put the tongue out and is, deviating to one side, but it was slightly off. And then when you look at her eye movements and her eye tracking, really hard time keeping her eyes steady. And what you'll see is if people have a hard time keeping their eyes steady, that all the stuff in the background behind that thumb will really mess with people. And when you can't deal with that motion or that movement, you kick into a sympathetic mode where you go into fight or flight. And that can lead to anxiety, which can further provoke your dizziness. Because if you change your breathing and your respiration patterns, and now your breathing is off, and that changes your body's pH, that can make those pathways fire unstable. And then when you look at the eyes, they might be doing even more movement. So,
and these are the things that make us think we're crazy.
Yeah.
Like everything you're just kind of pulling together here, we've been told by neurologists and general practitioners and whoever it is we go to, we're being told you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine.
Yeah.
And you start to really believe that you are crazy. So
So I mean, people come into my office, they've been told that they're crazy. They feel like they're crazy. They don't know what's going on, and people start thinking they're faking these symptoms. And what happens is when your brain's using so much energy just to try and stay upright and not black out and keep your eyes steady on targets, which really, I mean, you shouldn't have to think about that stuff. What happens is that your brain just uses so much fuel and then it fatigues out. So then you start getting all these metabolic symptoms and changes in your blood sugar regulation, and everybody thinks it's a metabolic issue. And these neurological circuits are using all your fuel. All right. And then you go into dysglycemia or hypoglycemia on these blood sugar episodes. And then your neurotransmitters start to get affected, like your dopamine levels and GABA and serotonin and acetylcholine and norepinephrine. And then people will start getting put on medications for these things, and then start taking a bunch of supplements for these things. And obviously nutrition is very important after TBI, and supplementation is appropriate for, it's a good thing to do in certain situations to help get better nutrition for the brain to heal. But for me, you have to go back just to the basics of, can people keep their eyes steady? All right. Are those circuits that got affected with trauma, are they affecting that person? So that's something that you'll see, and you'll see little subtle movements, oscillations or square wave jerks of the eyes where they'll look like they're trying to stay steady, and you'll start seeing the pupils really start to go in and out. And then you'll see this subtle motion. And here's the thing, like the person they're probably not going to feel that. All right. So they don't know that it's going on until you point it out to them that it's actually happening.
For me, I knew my eyes weren't okay. Like, I'm a photographer, so I'm a very visual person. So maybe that's why I was more attuned to that. But I kept asking everybody what's wrong with my eyes. Even my eye doctor couldn't figure it out. Right.
Yeah.
And you were the first person you like had me follow your finger, and you're like, yeah, it's your eyes. Yeah. And I could tell something wasn't okay with my eyes, but I couldn't articulate it.
Yeah, I mean, so vision's so much more than just 20/20 and visual acuity, and that's why, you see people like Deborah Zelinsky, out of Chicago, that she's a very well-known, like COVD, like neurooptometrist, and those types of practitioners are looking at these things.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll kind of go through the people that I work with. So I have a whole referral team of people that I work with too. All right. So people come to see me. I work with them for a week, but then I work with, sports psychology. I work with neurooptometry. I work with hypnotherapy. I work with meditation. I have yoga practitioners that I refer people to. I have hyperbaric that I refer people to. So, I work with all sorts of other types of providers in addition to the stuff that I do to put together the most specific treatment plan based off what I'm seeing with people's neurological exams. So So gaze stability can be affected. And then if you have issues where, maybe one eye is slightly up or one eye is slightly in, that can lead to changes in your depth perception. And people will have changes in their ability to, bring their eyes together appropriately, convergence or diverge their eyes out. And that's commonly affected with TBI. So there's different centers in the brain that allow that to be able to happen appropriately. And your visual system really uses your entire brain. I mean, just up in the cortex, there's like 32, 33 different visual areas with all these connections between them. All right. So it's a lot of fuel delivery that these pathways need. But then they're talking to the brainstem. So the brainstem is doing all the things that it has to do. And the brainstem is supplying all the upper areas in the brain with all the fuel that it needs. So if all day long you're doing this thousands of times a day, what people usually notice is that their neck gets really tight.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if you're having all these aberrant eye movements, then you get a cervicogenic component, which can further provoke your dizziness. And if you ever had a really, really tight neck, that you can feel foggy, you can feel dizzy, you can feel lightheaded from these changes in the cervical spine. So basically, you could have a cervical spine injury that leads to changes centrally in the brain. You could have changes in the brain that leads to changes in the cervical spine. All right. You could have changes in the brain that lead to dysautonomia. And now you're in this fight or flight mode and your sympathetic system is firing really high. And then that can increase the tightness in your neck. And the tightness in your neck can actually give feedback up into your vestibular system and change the way that your head and eyes move appropriately together. So if my neck is really tight and I turn my head to the left, my eyes might slam back to the right and I might go, oh my gosh, I just got some excessive visual motion and I feel like I'm rocking and rolling all over the place. So the system's way more complex than just saying, well, it's just a neck injury. It's just a injury to the inner ear, or it's just a central vestibular injury. What I'm trying to do in my office in Minnesota is integrate these systems and make the rehab so complex that people can go out and actually do their everyday real life tasks and not just look good in my room right here and then go outside and totally fall apart and be that person who's living in a bubble for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
All right. So you can also have issues with your quick eye movements, which are called saccades, and complex circuitry that involves different pathways in the brain down to the brainstem to fire different eye movements to get your eyes to move quickly and hit targets appropriately. All right. So your brain builds these maps off of your visual world by hitting targets with your eyes and being metric. So we don't want you to have hypometria or hypermetria, like overshooting or undershooting targets, because that's going to skew your maps in your brain. And the next thing you know, you start going to like reach for stuff and you're not grabbing that appropriately, or you're bumping into things. And those maps of your visual world actually get translated into like your body maps. So you'll start to see people have different head tilts and elevation, and you'll get different tightness and different patterns in the body. And everybody's trying to adjust it away and rub it away and massage it away or laser it away or acupuncture it away. But really, it's a complex central circuitry that's going on. So you have to combine doing different types of body-based movements with, vestibular rehabilitation and visual to get those systems to integrate appropriately. And a lot of, rehabilitation that's being done for TBI right now is actually not so much focused on the central vestibular system, but what I see commonly in the patients that don't get better, I see the people that don't get better is they're getting treated like they just have a peripheral, issue with their ear. So they might be doing some sort of vestibular rehabilitation exercise, but they're doing it too quick. Or when they're doing it, their head is jerky while they're doing it, or the movement's not effective or not appropriate to get their eyes to be perfectly steady. And, we're complex human beings and we have to deal with a complex world, gravitational load, you got complex movements going in front of you. So these systems have to be right on, they have to be perfect. And if you get those pathways to fire perfect, then you end up, getting blood to go to the appropriate areas in your body, like up to your head. And to your gut so you can digest your food and absorb your nutrients appropriate. So with me, like, you know, I had a concussion in 2011. First of all, I've had a couple, but I had a concussion in 2011, and I didn't even realize how messed up that I was. Like, it was a couple weeks later, and I was getting off an elevator, and I walked off the elevator, and my legs just gave out from underneath me, and I basically like collapsed into the floor. And I was like, "Ooh, that's not normal." and then ended up doing a pretty long drive. And then when I got back home, I felt like I was still kind of in the car, like everything was going so fast. So I injured some central circuitry in my vestibular system and went through this whole long road of trying to get things steady. Ended up losing a ton of weight because I was just, you know, so fueled up and just, you know, my system was firing nonstop all the time. And then what happens with this stuff is you end up developing sleep pattern issues and insomnia and changes in your sleep pattern. And then when you throw that on top of it, it's just a cluster of, well, what the heck do you even deal with here now? So that's why, you know, I can totally see why people get, you know, put on medications for this and that, and then things just kind of snowball down this whole road. And you know, what really helped with me was doing appropriate vestibular rehab, and really just like driving my body and, you know, muscular activation combined with doing very specific eye movements. Actually, you know, I have a prism in my glasses. It helps because I'm on a computer all day long, and it really helps with my driving. I was getting super dizzy driving on the road, and I'd had times where I felt like I was about to black out, which that's obviously not safe. So,
No.
you know,
Jeremy, when you had your concussion, you were in chiropractic school, correct?
I was right at the end of school, so it was right before I graduated. So my whole first year of practice was basically just trying to figure out what was going on with my neurological system, and still fixing people at the same time, but trying to fix myself. So I mean, a lot of the exercises.
That's what prompted you to go into functional neurology, right?
I was introduced to functional neurology actually before I even went to chiropractic school. So the reason why I got into functional neurology is because I was introduced to some chiropractors that were already doing functional neurology. All right, so that's what got me interested, and then I thought that I was going to do all this awesome work working with athletes and sports injuries. And the next thing you know, I'm seeing all these patients with, post-stroke and dizziness and vertigo and neurodevelopmental disorders. And I was hooked. Yeah. And then I did the whole traumatic brain injury program. And then next thing you know, all these people need help with TBI, and there we go. So, my love is really for trying to figure out what's going on with the vestibular system and, people that aren't getting better, and get people to know where they are in space and get them functioning and get them back doing the activities that they like to do. And we don't want people living in bubbles.
Yeah. So, it sucks.
It sucks big time. Yeah. But yeah, so, on top of having issues with your saccades, you can also have issues with like your motion tolerance. So like your ability to follow targets as they're moving in front of you. And we check that. It's called an optokinetic reflex. So we'll see if we move a stripe moving in front of somebody, do their eyes look like they follow the target, and then jump back quickly and appropriately. And that was actually one of the major reflexes that was off with you. So if you watch your optokinetics as they're going down, your eyes just deviate off over to one side, and then you don't have the appropriate pattern. Also initially when I saw you, like your eyes weren't steady, you had these little square wave jerks, like your pursuits had all these intrusions throughout it. You see all this like pupillary hippus with your eyes. Your balance wasn't appropriate. You close your eyes, you look like you're rocking and rolling on a boat. You were off on one side with like your finger to nose test, all right, which looks at the cerebellum. So we developed rehab to activate different pathways just to let you know where you were. Okay. So those are like the visually mediated reflexes that can be off. Also you can have issues with the neck, but you could injure some of the central vestibular circuits. So from a basic vestibular standpoint, you should be able to assess somebody and and move their head one way and see if their eyes shift back equal and opposite. So if I'm looking at my thumb and I turn my head to the left, like my eyes should move appropriately back to the right to keep my eyes steady. And what you'll see is that people have issues with their vestibular ocular reflexes. They're not going to have the best ability to walk and like read a street sign. So they might be walking and their head is moving and then stuff looks like it's kind of moving all over the place. So you'll see that with patients. And, really that's where vestibular rehabilitation comes in. But what's going on is people have so much dysautonomia that if you go in there and you just put them in a seated position and start doing vestibular rehabilitation, I mean, they might get super dizzy and nauseous and not be able to tolerate that. So with our rehab, we usually start with people on their back and then throughout the week, move them to seated, then move them to standing, then move them to walking, then develop strength-based programs, usually doing isometric holds with their legs, and then move them into walking and moving, and then just add more complexity to their exercises after the week when they're gone. And we've taken people that haven't, that have been blacking out, going from here to here, and have had them running within 5 days, which is pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Which is really cool.
And
so,
I mean,
yeah,
not
so
everyone reacts the same way. And, like Braden, for example, he's had to come back to you over the course of a year or year and a half, but he's made incredible recovery. So I mean,
what I see is
everybody's a little bit different, but and I get asked all the time what my eye exercises are, and like I don't share them with people because what worked for me could mess you up, it's so incredibly specific to what's wrong with you.
Totally. Yeah. So I mean, we'll see people for 5 days, and we'll see them 3 times a day. Initially, they come in on that first day. We do our examination. We usually split the exam up into 2 separate visits because people were just getting so tired when we were doing the whole physical exam and then running all the diagnostics on them. Later in the day, we do a report of findings and then start doing some initial treatment. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I mean, we're hitting therapy hard. And, I would call it more of an aggressive approach to try and get people, better faster. All right. Let's be honest. People want to get better. They don't want to just sit around and wait at this point, especially if it's 2 years later. So we push people's nervous systems hard to try and make them adapt and transform and improve their human potential and improve their function. And then they're sent home with exercises, and we do 6 email check-ins, 3 phone calls over like the next certain amount of time. And then we tweak people's exercises over that period as well. And I'll send them new things. And like, we need to make this harder for you, it sounds like, and we'll add this in. And, we do have people come back sometimes. I've had a lot of people where I've never seen them ever again. And they do the week and it's like, bye-bye. And they're doing fine. So everybody's totally different. But what I see is for the more complex cases and when people haven't been getting better, they'll work with us. But you'll see them consistently needing to do therapy and exercises throughout like a year. That doesn't mean that they have to come back and see us all the time, but they might be doing all their stuff at home over a year period. And usually I'll see people get back to like 80-85% over that year of where their function is at. And how great is that from going from like 10-15% to 85%?
Yep.
All right. And then usually what I'll see is over a time period, then you'll start seeing the metabolic systems get under control. The gut will start to heal. So there's this whole other, neurometabolic web of systems that need to get back functioning appropriately. And we help with all that as well. So I think I hit cervical spine. I hit, the visual system, the vestibular system, a little bit, but really, all these systems talk to each other. They're multimodal. So we could improve an eye movement by giving you like a hand movement or a body movement, or having you do a lunge hold or a squat movement. And, all of our exercises are very specific for each individual person. We had, last week we had a couple people that were in, they ended up like staying. So we have people stay at a hotel. We got a super cheap rate at this hotel. People are shuttled over to us. And then at night, they have the ability to go to the YMCA, which is across the street, and go to the pool and sauna and work out
Oh,
and do
very
all that
cool.
stuff, which is awesome. And that's included at the hotel where people are at. And I think we got a hotel rate of like $70 a night for people to come stay at the La
That's
Quinta
awesome. And
Hotel,
it's a
which
nice
is like
hotel. Yeah.
yeah, which is like 2 miles away from our office. That way it just makes it simple. They could take the shuttle, but they ended up like having rooms that were connected by a door. So they're like right next to each other. So like all week long, these ladies were hanging out and like talking about their exercises. And they're like, oh my gosh, your stuff's so much different than my stuff. And
Yeah.
everybody's got different things that they need to work on. And I've never seen the same neurological findings in two different people. Like stuff's totally different between people. So yeah.
Can you explain just a little bit about how watching people's eye movements? So I know you have some videos you can show us of my eye movements, but how the eye movements kind of tell you where the damage is.
Yeah, so I mean, all of this is all mapped out, and a lot of it's done in animals. But it looks at, like, say, if you have a hard time with a pursuit, that's different circuitry in the brain than being able to just move your eyes quickly. So all of these different eye movements have different areas of the brain and different circuits that are associated with them. So we can look at our neurological exam and go, all right, your balance is off. You get worse on the phone when you close your eyes and put your head back. We look at your eyes in the dark and you have a nystagmus pattern. This is more of an issue in the brainstem because when you were walking and we had you think, you actually look better. So it's not an issue in the frontal lobe, and your pursuits look good and your quick eye movements look good. So by looking at the exam, we can try and target what areas of the brain we think are not firing appropriately. Does that kind of make sense? So like say if you had an issue with a pursuit in one direction, and then when you came in and did a finger to nose, it was very jerky on one side, we could go, well, maybe that's an issue with the right cerebellum, the left brain stem, and this left frontal lobe. All right. So we're doing an examination that looks at all your motor, sensory, reflexes, balance, autonomics, posture, gait, breathing pattern, structural examination, vestibular examination, neurocognitive examination, looking at your whole visual system, looking at the vestibular system, how those systems integrate together, and actually getting numbers on your balance, getting numbers on your eye movements, getting numbers on how quickly your eyes can get started and stopped, and doing neurocognitive assessments to see if there's changes in your memory function, frontal lobe function. So we're integrating all this stuff together and developing a very specific program based off what areas of the brain we think are affected.
You know, you actually found me. You had read one of my HuffPost pieces and realized that I was local, and you were like, oh my gosh, I can help you. And you reached out to me, and I was like, what, I'd already been to like 200 doctor appointments in 2 years, right? Like I was frustrated. I was done. I was over it. I'm like, he's just going to tell me he can't help me either. And eventually I went in, did an exam, and you spent 2 hours on my exam. Yeah. Where like the neurologist was about 20 minutes, and like nobody is spending time with me. And you spent 2 hours with me, checking my gait, my balance, my eye. It was like, oh my gosh, this guy gets it. And the eye videos, I wore these goggles that recorded my eyeballs moving, and I know you can show that to everyone. But it's like, that's what's happening to my eyeballs. That's why I feel this way. Yeah. Yeah.
So, with what we do in a majority of, a lot of the functional neurologists that, do these different programs, I'm just going to let everybody know most everybody's out of network with all insurance companies is what you'll see. And, we see people for 15 to 18 hours in a week, and that allows us to be able to do what the person needs to get them better. And let's be honest, like people just want to get better, and the typical program of what you'll see of people that are doing this stuff, like what we do, is between like 4,500 about $5,000 for the week. But you're getting such specific care and we're spending so much time and we're able to actually examine you for 2 hours and then talk to you for another 2 hours if I wanted to. And I don't have to run around and adjust 50 people in between seeing you because I'm focused on you and trying to figure out what's going on with you. And for me, if I was, I guess I was a patient, but being a patient, that's what I would want. I would want people to focus on me and try and let's just figure it out. I just want to get better.
Yeah.
So,
and, I mean, your whole staff, you've got Dr. Eric and Dr. Cassie, and I mean, everybody was so awesome to work with. And a couple of people have asked, if there's anyone near them. So can people just call your clinic and talk to Lori, who's your office manager?
Yeah, I mean, they can call, they can talk to Lori. I know that you have a list of providers. They can also go to the DACNB, acnb.org. That has a list of like a lot of chiropractic and functional neurologists throughout the country. Doesn't mean that all of them are trained in traumatic brain injury and rehabilitation. So everybody's kind of got their own, subspecialties with what they do. So yeah, I mean, if people are looking, just, post comments there and we can try and get back to you about, people that are located in those different areas. There's a lot of really amazing providers that do what I do across the country. All right. So hopefully we can put people in contact. But yeah, I'm just going to show just one little quick video of your eyes. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's you looking at one single target in the dark, or out of the dark, just looking at one dot on the screen, which is assessing your gaze stabilization. Did you see that big oscillation movement at the beginning there?
Yeah.
Did you see that? I'm going to play it again.
I did, but yeah, play it again so people can watch it. You can see how my pupils are getting big, little, big, little. There it was. The twitch.
I mean, if you watch all your gaze stabilization videos, you're going to see these subtle little oscillations throughout like the whole thing. All right. And if you look at your pursuits,
that's what's really cool is these videos and seeing them and being like, oh my God, that's why I feel so weird. Is this a new one? Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think this is one of the initial ones. And here's the thing. I mean, these movements don't have to be super big. I mean, if you're a really high functioning person, next thing you know, you have just these subtle changes. I mean, that can be disastrous for somebody. All right. Just being, 100% and going to like 90% in the function of your pursuits.
Oh, that was a big one.
So, I mean, that's just a little bit of stuff there. I guess I actually have to go adjust somebody right now. So
yeah, you're being summoned to work.
I'm being summoned by my wife.
Well, awesome, you guys. Thank you so much for being here, Jeremy. I think this was great information. And if anyone needs to get in touch with you, they can just give the clinic a call.
Yep. So 612-223-8590, or you can visit mnfunctionalneurology.com. And you're going to talk to our office manager. Her name's Lori Peterson, and she lets me know about everybody that she talks to, so we can decide. Awesome. Yeah, she's awesome. We can decide on if you're a good fit for the office and if we think we can help you or not. I mean, we're all about helping people. And at this time, I mean, we're super busy, and we're trying to help as many people as we possibly can and provide the best care that's specific for each individual. And we just want to see people get better. We don't want to see people suffer if they don't need to. So it's that simple.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeremy.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone who has tuned in and checked us out. I hope that oh, I think he got froze on his way out. So I hope that you guys got some great information. Again, on my website at facesoftbi.com/resources, I do have a downloadable PDF that lists, I believe there's like 60 doctors on that list. But you want to do your due diligence and, you know, ask the right questions with these doctors. TBI, not all of them have the same technology that Jeremy has, that he's working with. And so you do want to do your due diligence with that list, because I have not vetted it myself. I have just gone through and found doctors who do practice functional neurology. But your best bet is to call their office, mnfunctionalneurology.com, and the link is right at the top in the post. So give the office a call, talk to Lori, let her know where you live. She'll try to help someone that they know, or she'll try to help you find someone that they know in that area who does have the same credentials that Jeremy has. So I hope this has helped you guys. I hope this has helped clear up some of the dizzy stuff, because, you know, we're often told it's positional vertigo, and sometimes it is positional vertigo, but Dr. Bridget Wallace had told me a statistic that the Epley maneuver, which is, you know, where they do this movement with your head to move the crystals, has a 90% success rate in 2 treatments. So if you had 2 treatments of the Epley maneuver and you're still dizzy, it's definitely not positional vertigo. And if you're sitting still and like something watching my finger on the screen here makes you dizzy, that's not positional vertigo. Positional vertigo is definitely where you have to move. If you're sitting still and you get dizzy by watching something, it's not positional vertigo. So it's very, very often our eyes and that circuitry that Jeremy was talking about. So give his office a call if you need help finding someone. And thanks for watching. I hope you guys got some great information.